Welcome to episode 696 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. And if you're watching the video, you already know it's a Josh solo episode tonight. Tonight just didn't work out for Richard, so he will hopefully be back for our next episode. But we've got a good one in store for you this week. Kind of a mix of good news and bad news. Plex is introducing a paywall. Amazon, however, is making it easy to get right to your favorite scene in a movie just by talking about it. Netflix, unfortunately, seems to be killing off casting. Spotify is making it easier to migrate from a competing service. And Xbox continues to improve the gaming experience on handheld devices. So all of that to discuss this week. We've also got some listener feedback this week. These were emailed to us. Our email address is entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. And our first message of the week is from David. He says, "Hello and good day. Did Microsoft learn nothing from the Xbox One price disaster? One could argue that the console war was lost on launch day way back then because of the price difference, which brings me to today. If the next Xbox price, or PlayStation 6 price for that matter, starts with a 1, that is dead on arrival. 4 figures is a hard ask for a sunk cost. I don't care how good the product is, to say nothing of the $80+ per game just to use that console. What say you?" David, it's a great question, and clearly you've been paying attention in this space for a long time. But for anybody who needs a little bit of additional context, when the previous generation launched in 2013, the PlayStation 4 launched at $400. The Xbox One was $500 because it included the Kinect. And if you've been really paying close attention to Microsoft over the last couple of years, they've practically admitted, without directly saying it, that they lost the console war during that generation, because that was a key generation, because that's when people really started to build their digital game libraries. Prior to that, most people were still buying games on disc, on physical media. Now most people don't. And if you started building your digital library on a PlayStation 4, well, then it made it a whole lot easier and a whole lot more logical for you to buy a PlayStation 5 in 2020 when that next generation launched. So Microsoft already realizes that they're way behind just from the problems that you referenced there. So you ask if I think the next consoles will have 4-digit price points. Will they be over $1,000? I don't expect the PlayStation 6 to be that much. If the next Xbox console is purely, essentially a gaming PC, then yeah, I kind of do expect it to be over $1,000, because for them to build essentially a gaming PC that's more powerful than the Xbox Series X right now, which it would obviously need to be, yeah, it's going to have to be over $1,000, especially with the cost of hardware right now. I don't know that PlayStation needs to go that route, though. So I think there's just so much up in the air. It's going to depend on when these things launch, whether Microsoft really goes that full strategy of making this a PC, and if we really do see a gigantic increase in performance, which they've been saying for the last couple of years, that their next piece of hardware will be dramatically more powerful than the current generation. And for reference, when we're talking about things like the Steam Machine, or even some of these powerful gaming handhelds, none of those devices are more powerful than an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, a console that came out over 5 years ago at this point. So yeah, I think we're talking about big money, especially if we're going full into the PC ecosystem for the next Xbox console. But I don't expect PlayStation to do that. So the other thing to keep in mind, though, is everything costs more money right now for a couple of reasons. But one that's impacting like everything is we've got a lot more tariffs across the board right now. And those tariffs could change or go away or increase or decrease at any point because they're entirely dictated right now by our president. And he could change his mind, or the next president could change their mind. And that could have a dramatic impact on the cost of these things. The other thing that's playing a major role in the cost of these types of devices, tech devices in general, is this AI bubble that we're in. We're seeing the cost of RAM shoot through the roof right now. I think the main reason we don't know the cost of the Steam machine yet is because they're trying to figure out how much the memory is going to cost to put inside of that device. So that's going to be another big factor in how much these devices cost in the future. They'll need more RAM, and RAM is super expensive right now. So much depends on the global economy, what is happening with the cost of all of these different components that go into these things. So I think we've got at least a year. I don't think Microsoft or PlayStation are announcing new consoles until at least mid next year, if not, second half of next year. Because I don't think we're going to get a new generation until at least 2027. But I could be wrong. We talked about this a few episodes ago, and I believe that Richard said he thinks they'll be coming even sooner. So we will have to wait and see there. But David, thank you again for that message. We also got one from Jose. He is a long-time listener and a long-time commenter, so really appreciate hearing from Jose. He says, over the last few episodes, there has been discussion and topics, and we're kind of emphasis here on the past few episodes here, discussion and topics related to the loss of access to certain media, whether it's loss of access to channels because of a dispute, certain content coming off of streaming platforms, and more poignantly, Disney removing Google as a retailer from the Movies Anywhere platform. I think that actually went the other way around, but it doesn't matter because it's over. He says all of this shuffling around is a stark reminder that we truly don't own anything anymore. These service providers can decide at any point to just pull our access to what we've paid for. I don't know if it's because I happen to be in the physical media bubble, but it seems like physical media, alongside with pirating, is having a bit of a resurgence. And I can't help but think it's directly related to the constant price increases and barriers that are there with streaming and owning digital media. I'm just wondering if you guys think that more people will start turning to physical media, or if streaming is so easy that people will ignore the issues that we're starting to see pop up more and more. Jose, fantastic question. You're doing a great job of pointing out that this in different ways keeps popping up on practically every episode of this podcast, which means that it is a recurring pattern across the entire digital media ecosystem. To go directly to your question of, do I think that more people will start turning to physical media? I don't think so. We definitely don't see that in music, but we kind of do. In fact, maybe music is the one place where some people have, because so many people are getting back into the vinyl record bandwagon again. I don't completely understand that. I think that's more of an experience sort of thing than even just having access to things long term. I think in movies and TV shows, I really don't see that happening. While these types of situations are extremely frustrating, I think there's three main reasons that we're not going to see people start to flock back to physical media. The first and maybe the most obvious one is it's just not as available anymore. A lot of people don't even have devices that could play physical media anymore. DVDs, Blu-ray players, 4K Blu-ray players especially. Unless you have a game console, like most people don't have a Blu-ray player anymore. And even if they did, where are you buying Blu-rays? Yes, Amazon has them, but like Best Buy barely even sells these things anymore. So I don't, maybe I need to start polling people that I actually know. I don't hear of anybody going and buying physical media for movies and TV shows anymore. So that's one reason. The second reason is, as you pointed out, streaming and just streaming and purchasing digital media is so easy right now. And oftentimes convenience trumps fidelity. That's what we've said for years, right? Back when we, especially the listeners of this podcast, were huge into owning our own physical media. We would buy our own physical media so that we could see our movies in the best possible resolution and bitrate and all of that you couldn't get from streaming at the time. And you still can't. Like a 4K Blu-ray will still look and sound better than any streaming provider. It might not be as noticeable as it was 5 years ago, but it is still better. But it's so easy to just stream and purchase digitally right now. And the third reason that I think that people still will stick with this is, while we complain that there are so many competing services, there are so many different services to subscribe to or different places to rent from or purchase from, that also means that we have a lot of options. And so if Disney channels disappear from YouTube TV, well, you can cancel your YouTube TV subscription and switch to Hulu with live TV, or switch to Sling or DirecTV. Like, you have options, and you're not nearly as locked in as you used to be with cable companies and satellite providers. You're not forced into a year-long contract for YouTube TV. You're paying month to month for most of these things. In addition to that, let's say your favorite show is on Netflix right now and you want to go back and watch it, but Netflix just lost the rights to it. Well, if Netflix lost the rights, it's probably because a different service gained the rights. So if a show left Netflix and now it's on Peacock, well, then you could just cancel your Netflix subscription and sign up for Peacock. Is that a little bit of a pain? Sure, but it's not really that big of a problem. And frankly, most people would just sign up for Peacock and have both in that situation. And frankly, that's what Netflix and Peacock are hoping that you're going to do anyway. So I just don't see physical media really starting to make a comeback. I wish that you were wrong about pirating potentially making a resurgence here. I don't know if it is. I know that it's a constant thing that has never left, and there are certainly easy ways to get access to those types of things. It's not what we condone on this show, of course, but I just don't see physical media making a comeback because there's just not as much of it available, and everything else is so much easier. But Jose, thank you for writing in. And again, if you, the listener, would like to send us some questions like these two gentlemen did, or some comments on any topics, our email address is entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com, and all the rest of our contact information will be at the end of the show, or just go on over to the website, thedigitalmediazone.com, and you can find it all right there, along with our show notes. So with that, let's dig into the news for this week. So we're going to start with a story from Plex, and it's not a good one. So Plex had announced some of this months ago, but now it's actually really starting to come into effect here. And what we're talking about is Plex is looking to increase its revenue to continue to build and support new features by charging people to remotely stream from other Plex servers. So everything that I'm about to talk about only applies to you if you are streaming from someone else's Plex server. If you have your own Plex server set up in your basement and you're streaming it all around your house, you're fine. Nothing is changing. You can keep living your normal life. But if that's not you, well, someone's going to have to start paying money if they aren't already, because now they're starting to roll out changes that, especially on TV devices, it's starting with the Roku, but it's going to come to everything else in 2026. If you don't have a paid subscription, you're not going to be able to stream remotely. There are a couple of ways to make this work. So if the person you're streaming from, like let's just say your brother has a Plex server in his basement and you've been watching his Plex server. If your brother has a Plex Pass subscription, you're good. You don't need anything. You're good. You're good to go. It'll work. If your brother doesn't have a Plex Pass subscription, you have two options. You can buy your own Plex Pass subscription, or if all you want to do is remotely stream from somebody else's Plex server, there is a cheaper option for you, and it is called the Plex Remote Watch Pass. And you can get that instead, and then you can connect to other people's Plex servers and watch from there. So what do these options cost? Well, Plex service has gotten more expensive over the years. It is now $7 a month if you want to pay month to month. If you want to pay for a year, because this is all a subscription, you can buy a year's subscription to Plex Pass for $70, or they still offer a lifetime pass. Now, this has gotten a lot more expensive. This is like doubled, or maybe more than doubled in the amount of time that we've been doing this podcast, but that's 15 years. So maybe that's not unreasonable. So a Plex lifetime subscription is now $250. So if you were thinking about this, then you should have picked one up during the Black Friday sale because it was significantly discounted during Black Friday. Okay, so that's the cost of Plex Pass. And again, the cost of Plex Pass probably really only makes sense if you have your own Plex server. If all you want to do is stream from somebody else's Plex server, then you should look at the Remote Watch Pass. This is significantly cheaper, and it's a little bit easier. It's either $2 a month or it's $20 for a year. There is no lifetime option for the Remote Watch Pass. I think partly because lifetime passes generally aren't good for the company. And two, I think they're hoping that eventually you're going to love Plex so much that you're going to build your own server and you're going to subscribe to Plex Pass directly. But either way, the Remote Watch Pass, super cheap. So does it stink that they're putting up a paywall that if you want to fire up your Roku, connect to your brother's Plex server, and now you have to pay for that? Yeah, it kind of stinks that they are. But these services cost money to operate. The people who build Plex, the employees who work for Plex, they need to put food on their table. So the cost of the stuff is going up. So it makes sense. I'm not super upset about this, especially with how cheap the Remote Watch Pass is. But this might come as a surprise if you've got friends who have been streaming from your server and you don't have Plex Pass. Because let's be honest here. Most of the people listening to the show are the people that have the Plex server. They're probably not the people who are just casually watching their friend's Plex server. So if you know somebody in this situation, fill them in, share this podcast with them. Okay, our next story. I think this is actually kind of cool. Amazon has built a new feature. I'm sorry, I'm going to say the wake word. If you've got an Amazon digital assistant nearby, maybe mute it. Sorry. But their new service is called Alexa Plus. I'll make that the last time I say it. I'll just say A plus from now on. That service, it's a newer service. It's a smarter version of Amazon's digital assistant, using all of these LLM technologies and all of that. And now they're putting it to good use for people who are watching movies. Because what you can do now with A plus is you can describe a scene in a movie in the same way that you would describe it to your friend. So when I think about a movie scene that I might want to immediately go to, I think of the lobby scene in the first Matrix movie. That scene is incredible. The cinematography is awesome. The action is awesome. The song from the propeller heads is awesome. Everything about that scene is awesome. And if I had an Amazon Fire TV device and this service, I could ask the assistant to go straight to the lobby scene in The Matrix. And assuming that that movie is available because I've purchased it from Amazon digitally, or it's in the Prime Video catalog. And one more little caveat, and assuming that it's been like indexed for them to be able to do this sort of lookup, then it will take that description, open up the movie, and go straight to that scene. And that is so cool. It is so cool. Like, that is a fantastic use case for these LLMs in your living room. It's been hard to think of great ones, and we haven't seen very many, but this is a good one. Throw out a movie quote. You don't even have to say the name of the movie in some cases. Just from the quote alone, it might be able to figure out what movie you're talking about. And if they have access to it, it can jump straight to that scene. And I think that's pretty awesome. You might be wondering, I haven't really heard of this A+ service. It sounds like it's something that's going to cost me extra. Well, if you're in the Amazon ecosystem already, you probably already have Amazon Prime. And as long as you have Amazon Prime, you have this Amazon Assistant Plus service already. If you don't have Amazon Prime, you're probably not going to use this anyway. But in that case, that service then is $20 a month, and you wouldn't really have access to the Prime Video catalog either. So this would be significantly less useful. But if you're in that Amazon ecosystem, this is really cool. And frankly, I hope that Google copies this feature quickly because it's so cool. One more video story for you this week. This one is from Netflix, and they're kind of making their service harder to use for no reason, really, other than maybe trying to paywall this feature in a way that really doesn't make any sense. So what's the feature they're getting rid of here? They're getting rid of the ability to cast from your phone to your TV device. Some of you might be thinking, who cares? I never do this. I sit on my couch, I grab the remote, and I open Netflix, and I go to the thing that I want to watch. But that's not how everybody does it, because maybe you've been watching something right on your phone already, and you're just shifting to the TV, and so you want to cast. Or maybe you are at a friend's house, and they don't have a Netflix subscription, so it's not even logged in, and like that would be a pain to set it all up. So maybe you just want to cast that way. Or maybe you just find it easier to search for things inside of the mobile app. And then once you've found it, cast it to your TV. Well, you're probably losing that functionality if you've been using it. And there are a couple of caveats here. They're all frustrating. If you're using an older TV that has Google Chromecast built in, or you're using an older Chromecast device, this may still work for you. But it'll only work for you if you're not on an ad-supported subscription tier. That's maybe the part that's the most frustrating about this. They are paywalling the ability to cast from your phone. It's ridiculous. You have to be on the $18 a month plan or above to be able to cast. And even in that case, you can still only cast to legacy devices. If you've got for example, in my basement, I've got a Vizio TV from 2017 or something like that. When I open up Netflix on my phone, I can cast to that device, and I can cast to my Google Home Hub. I cannot cast to my LG OLED. I cannot cast to my On 4K Pro Google TV streamer. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you lost this functionality 6 years ago. I'd completely forgotten about this because I'm not in the Apple ecosystem. They removed AirPlay support in 2019. So basically across the board, unless you are a higher paying customer and you have old devices, you basically can't cast anymore. So that's got to be a pretty small group of people. So really unfortunate news here from Netflix, and news that just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Yes, it's a feature that requires engineers to support this, but it's not like Netflix is a small company. They have thousands of software engineers. This seems like functionality they could have continued to support, but they're not going to. So I guess make sure you've got your remote handy, and maybe hope that if you're searching for a movie, it doesn't have a really long name, because you're going to be entering it with a remote instead of on your phone. Okay, let's move on to some happier news, I guess, and switch on over to audio news. We're going to talk about Spotify now, my favorite service. And Spotify has sort of built new functionality. They did a little bit of work here. For anybody who might be thinking about switching to Spotify, but maybe you're in Apple Music or Amazon Music and you've got tons of playlists and you can't bear the idea of having to recreate all of those playlists. Well, good news. Now you don't have to, because once you've signed up for Spotify, if you go into your library section inside of the app, scroll all the way down, which if you're new, you're not going to have to scroll very far because you probably don't have many playlists yet. At the bottom of the library screen, you're going to find a button called Import Your Music. And when you do that, it's going to open up a web browser and take you to a service called Tune My Music. Now, this isn't a Spotify feature. This is a third-party service. But this third-party service can import your playlist from practically anything. It of course supports the big guys: Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Tidal. They're all there, along with a bunch of other things that I didn't expect, like SoundCloud and like just so many other things. Even uploading a text file. If you have all of your playlists just stored as text files on your computer, you can upload those to this Tune My Music service and import them into Spotify. There's some interesting possible use cases there I can think of. But if you've been thinking about switching to Spotify, but you've been worried about having to recreate all of your playlist, well, you might not have to worry about that anymore. This could greatly simplify that process, and they're making it a whole lot easier to do. Okay, let's switch to a couple of gaming news stories for this week, both of them in the Microsoft Xbox space. So let's start with a change that is currently rolling out to the ROG Xbox Ally devices. So that's the Ally and the Ally X. They are calling this feature Default Game Profiles. What that means is, let's say you want to play the brand new Call of Duty Black Ops 7 on your ROG Ally X. If you fire it up, it's going to detect that that's the game that you're playing, and they're going to say, oh, we have a default game profile for this. We are automatically going to apply the right settings to the game to both balance battery life of the game and the performance of the game, the frames per second that you're going to get out of the game. And it does it all for you automatically. You don't need to do anything. It's kind of like playing on a game console. It's just automatically balanced for the device that you have, because they've done all of the work to figure out what those settings should be. Now, if you bought this device because you were like, guys, I'm a PC gamer. I'm a PC gamer because I love tweaking everything, you still can. This doesn't eliminate your ability to make those tweaks. But if you bought this device because you just want to play games on the go and you're really looking for more of a similar console type experience, this sounds great. One example they've given you is if you fire up Hollow Knight Silksong, the default game profile that they've built for that will increase your battery life by an hour while still maintaining 120 frames per second. An hour extra battery life just based on their default game profile that you don't need to do anything to use. That's pretty awesome. So how many games do they have this for? Well, right now it's only about 40. But it is a lot of they've got a lot of these bigger name AAA and indie games like Silksong, like Call of Duty, like Forza Horizon 5. Those are all in there. And they'll continue to build up this library. But, this takes some work. So it's, I wouldn't expect to see 150 next week and 400 the week after that or anything like that. So they will continue to build this out. And again, right now, it's also only for those Xbox branded handhelds from Asus ROG. ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X. Yes, I do have to write those down to remember the order of all of the words in those device names. But anyway, very cool feature. I hope that this continues to expand for those handhelds, but frankly, across the entire ecosystem, because there's other stuff that is expanding into other Windows PC devices for gaming. And that is that when those ROG Xbox Ally devices launched, they exclusively launched with what Microsoft called the Xbox full screen experience, meaning you could boot straight into an Xbox optimized version of the operating system. You wouldn't see the desktop, you wouldn't see desktop wallpaper, none of that. You would boot straight into the Xbox app running full screen. And if you wanted to do Windows desktop stuff, you would actually have to press some buttons and switch to the desktop. And if you wanted to, you could essentially reboot back into the gaming experience. The two main benefits to that are obviously a more optimized experience for gaming, because you don't have to do weird stuff with Windows PCs when you're trying to just use a game controller. And the other big benefit to the Xbox full screen experience is when you boot into that mode, it disables a bunch of processes that aren't relevant to gaming. And so you get more of your system resources dedicated to playing games. So you're optimizing battery life and you're optimizing game performance. It's awesome in theory. I don't know firsthand, because when it launched, like I said, it exclusively launched on these ROG Xbox Ally devices. I don't have one of those. I've got a Legion Go from Lenovo. But at the end of November, they announced, hey, good news. We're rolling this experience out to all gaming handhelds that are currently on the market. Well, if you've been around Microsoft for a while and you've really been keyed into how Microsoft does things, then you will know that when they say they're rolling something out, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is getting it at once. It means that eventually you will probably get it. I've got a Lenovo Legion Go. Do I have this experience? No, I do not. When did they start rolling this out to people? November 21st. Today is December 3rd. I still do not have this. Neither does basically anybody else with any of the Lenovo Legion devices, whether it's the old Legion Go that I've got, the new Legion Go S, the new Legion Go 2. None of them have this yet. So the rolling out process is definitely taking longer than I would like, because I really want this experience. It sounds great. Now, if you're impatient, there are tools out there. There's something called Vive Tool that you can go out and download, and it'll make the system tweaks and stuff to just basically force this experience onto your device. But I don't want to do that. I just want Windows to give it to me, because I want to make sure that I'm getting the same experience that most people are going to get. But I'm getting impatient. So I might end up doing it anyway, but then I'm going to have to figure out how to undo it, because I don't want to do it forever. I do want the experience that actually comes to most normal people, because that's what I like to talk about on this show is, if you're a normal person, how do your devices work now? And how can you use them for optimizing your experience with all of them? But while I'm disgruntled a little bit and very impatient that I don't have this, I'm really excited about the functionality. I think it's great. It definitely improves the experience. Now, does it make it as good as the Xbox hooked up to your TV? I don't think so. For starters, you don't have to log into your Xbox. You still have to log into your Windows PC, although there are ways to tweak that and make it so you don't have to log in. But maybe you should with a device that you're carrying out into the world. But it keeps getting better. And Xbox has really been working hard to release a lot of updates to Windows itself and the Xbox app and the Xbox Game Bar to make gaming on a Windows handheld better and better and better. I'm seeing updates all the time. They've and changes across the board. Like just this week, they announced the last round of games that are being added to the Xbox Game Pass catalog for the month of December. And I noticed something. Previously, when they would list out the games, they would tell you which platforms they were available on. And those platforms would be Xbox, PC, and cloud. That's it. Now they've actually added a fourth one. They've added handheld. Now, theoretically, any game that works on PC is going to work on handheld. But is it going to be a great experience on a handheld? It might not be, because a lot of times these handheld devices aren't as powerful as a desktop PC. And they're not really optimized for like keyboard and mouse gaming. So if the game that you want to play is like hardcore keyboard and mouse, they're probably not going to call that a handheld game. The other thing they're doing is like, if you're using your handheld and you are going through the Xbox store and you go to a game, it will tell you right inside of the Xbox store how well this game will play on your device. And it will also tell you how well this game will work on a handheld device, and what aspects are good and what aspects aren't. Like, does it support controller controls as opposed to keyboard and mouse? Things like that. Is the text too small for a display like this? It tells you all of those types of things so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to buy or download from Game Pass that specific game. So they're doing a lot. They keep making it better and better. And it does give me a lot of hope that if that next Xbox console is a PC, that it's going to be a lot better than what we think it would be based on what we've got right now, because they are doing a lot to improve this experience. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to get my hands on this full screen experience. If they don't push it to me over the next couple of days, this is probably going to turn into something I just manually do this weekend, and then I'll tell you all about it next week. Well, as always, we like to wrap up the show by talking about what we've been doing in our own entertainment centers. And for me, there's definitely been some gaming. This last weekend with the guys that I regularly game with, we finished playing the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 campaign. It's super weird. It still doesn't make sense that you have to be online to play it, but it was fun. And it's just weird because there's an end game. They call it the end game, but that end game is really basically just like the DMZ mode from Warzone from previous Call of Duty games. Why it's locked behind the campaign doesn't make any sense to me, but they did. But hey, we've got access to it now, so at least I can play that mode, because I did actually really like the DMZ mode of Warzone. I've never been that big into just straight up battle royale, but DMZ introduced some pretty different mechanics that made it a lot more fun than just straight up battle royale. So anyway, that's it for Call of Duty. And then outside of that, I'm trying to work my way through Super Mario RPG on the Switch. I'm getting close. The game is all about collecting 7 stars. I've got 6 of those stars now, so I'm getting very close. I gotta say, while I don't enjoy how small the display is on the Nintendo Switch, and I really don't enjoy the controls on the Joy-Cons, they're so small and so cramped, they're not comfortable. That is a good console gaming experience. The fact that I can pick it up, turn it on, it immediately is right there at my game. If I need to stop for any reason, I can just press the power button and I don't lose any of my progress. Like, the Switch is great. It really is great. That's why they've sold so many. And if you're curious about gaming, the Switch really is a fantastic place to start. Maybe at this point pick up a Switch too, but it is good as long as you don't mind the cramped controls. All right, that's it on gaming. Movies. Didn't watch any movies at home, but did go out to the movie theaters over the Thanksgiving holiday and saw Wicked Part 2. If you remember my review from last year, review is way bigger of a word than I should use for what I describe around here. I didn't love Wicked. I'm not, I never saw the musical. I'm not horribly attached to it anyway. I thought it was fine. I thought it was longer than it needed to be. I didn't understand why a 3-hour musical needed to be turned into 5 hours worth of movie, but they did. The actors are good and all of that. I don't know. Wicked Part 2, not as good as the first one, and I didn't love the first one. So will I be watching this again? No, I will not. But the rest of my family loved it, and that's all that really matters, I guess. In terms of things that I watched on TV, football. Lots of disappointing football. As a Lions fan and a Michigan Wolverines fan, it was not a good week for me for football. Really, really not a good week for me. That's enough said. And books. Started a new audiobook. This one is called Nuclear War. Woof. Wow. So this is it's a nonfiction book, but it's basically describing what would happen if North Korea launched a nuclear missile at the US and what actually happens. Like, it describes what nuclear war actually looks like, what these weapons can actually do, and the impact they have on people and the environment and cities and all of that. And it talks about how the government would likely respond in that sort of scenario. I'm not done with the book, but I don't think there's a happy ending to this one. I haven't finished it, so it's technically not a spoiler, but it's nuclear war. There's no winners in nuclear war. It's not good. This book is really well done. The one piece of advice that I would give you, and Jen gave me this advice too because she read it before I did. The first chapter is basically her acknowledging every single person she interviewed for this book. Like, name of the person, what their role is. You can skip that chapter. Like, unless you really care about every single person that you talk to, you can skip that chapter and save yourself 10 or 15 minutes if you want. But it's been a really interesting book so far. Maybe not exactly light reading that you might be looking for at this time of the year, but definitely really interesting reading. This also gave me the chance to try out a feature that we talked about on the last episode, and that is Spotify's ability to recap where you left off in an audiobook. This feature is still only available as of right now on iOS devices, so I had to use my iPad to check this out. But, I'm 40% of the way into this book, and so I clicked recap, and right away, it gave me it's like a minute and 20-second recap of what had happened up to where I was in the book. And I was really impressed by the recap. I expected kind of a janky AI, recap of this, but it wasn't at all janky. Like, this felt tailored. They've actually done a really good job with this. Now, my sample size is one book, but I was really impressed by how this AI recap feature works inside of Spotify, and it's super easy to use. Grab your iOS device, go to the book that you're listening to in Spotify, and right below the play button is the recap button. And you tap it and you get your recap. It's good. Use it. It's awesome. Check it out. Okay, that's pretty much it for what's been going on in my entertainment center. So that's pretty much it for this podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of us, send us some feedback back, ask us some questions, whatever you've got on your mind. You can do that in a few different ways. If you want to email us, that email address is entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. But we're also on the socials. I'm Josh Pollard on X and on Blue Sky. I'd kind of prefer if you used Blue Sky. Twitter is, it's not a great place. The website is also DigiMediaZone on X. Richard is Richard Gunther on Mastodon and richardgunther.com on Blue Sky. You won't find him on X anymore. And we do tend to do this show live. I don't do it when I'm going solo because I like to be able to take the breaks for drinks of water and all of that. So, but we do tend to do these shows live, so you can tune in and check those out. They're typically Tuesday or Wednesday nights around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We also tend to record the video of these, so head on over to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to the videos over there also, because that's going to do it for episode 696 I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.